I was going through so much imposter syndrome. And it's really funny because I had like all these visions and goals coming out of Icon. I was like, I want to like, you know, get on Insomniac Radio and play a festival. And I want to sign to like big labels and like do all this stuff. And I want to go viral on social media, you know, and I was like, I want to like go viral and all this stuff. And it's funny because there was one point I did kind of go viral with a
You
song
did.
with my Latch mashup. And
And you went on Insomniac Radio.
I went on Insomniac Radio. And right at the same time that both of those things happened was the hardest I was on myself. And it was devastating to me. You know, like I couldn't even function at one point because I didn't believe that it was real or like that I was even worthy enough to like get any of those things. And I felt like a fraud, you know, like with the Latch mashup, I was like, oh, I just made a mashup. It's not even my music. Like I feel like a fraud going viral and people dancing to this. So I stopped making music for a while and I had to because I had to come back to myself. And there was times where I was like, okay, I want to get back into doing it. But then there was still the fear of like going back onto social media and feeling the pressure of like, how do I reintegrate myself into like the society of social media? And at some point I was just like, all right, fuck it. I don't care. I just want to release music. You know, I think that was the biggest thing was like, I just want to release music again because I'm holding myself back. You know, I'm holding my art back. I'm holding my relationships with my friends back. I'm holding back like my artistic vision, you know, and it's not fair to myself and it's not fair to like to anyone around me that believes in me, you know, like it just doesn't make sense for me to be holding myself back at this point. And that was when I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to release. And that got, you know, and it's funny because I had a release last year for Warble on Me and we did like a whole party and everything. And I still was like not out of that feeling.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this.
It's so different. It's so different now. So like, I would love to know, and for anybody who's listening, who's struggling to really step out of that funk, out of that imposter syndrome, like what would you say to them, to anybody who really wants to, you know, devour their passions and like really go full force? Like, what would you say to them that got you? What's the difference between last year's release of Warble on Me versus this Groove With You song that got you there?
I would say stop thinking about other people. And that's so big in terms of just believing in yourself because as a musician or artist, you think about other people a lot. You know, how are people going to receive this? Is this, you know, something people can dance to? Like, how can I market this? Like all of these things that you're thinking about. And it's like, you can't think about what other people think. You have to think about what you like and what you appreciate about your art. And then just full force, go for it. You know, like don't think about your likes. Don't think about, you know, what's going to happen after you put it out. Just do it. And you have to go through the motions, you know, like you just have to actually do the work, you know, and like do the inner work and like the like figure out what it is that's actually holding you back. Cause if you don't know what's holding you back and you're just like stuck, then there's going to be a point where you're just like, okay, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And there's a lot of people that stop, you know, and I've seen so many people stop making music and it's a shame because there's so much good art and like, the more that you just push forward past those really hard places, the better you feel about your art and yourself and the way that you're presenting your music.
Yeah, and you spoke to a couple of things there about, you know, you're wearing all those hats while you're making the music. And like, that's a really important thing for a lot of creators that when we are wearing all of those hats, you have to, it's like a sacred motion. It's a sacred movement, moving one idea all the way through. When you're creating music, it's important to create that sacred space for only creating and don't wear any other hats. Don't think about the marketing. Don't think about how it's going to look at the end result.
Yeah.
It's so important to value the time and space when you are creating and to just let yourself be an artist. When you're done with the song, then we can talk about the other hats. But I think that's something that you really had to learn was don't wear the hats. Don't wear all the hats. You're just an artist right now when you're making your music.
One hat at a time is
one
very
hat
important.
At a time.
You know, and like it's crazy because you do like even just in the production process in general, you have to switch hats. You know, like you have to switch hats from like the sound designer to the producer that produces everything and then switch hats to the mixing and mastering engineer. And just those switches alone sometimes can be hard, you know? So like going from those places and like those switches and then having to think about everything else, it clutters up your mind. And so to be able to free up that space to allow you to breathe, just put on one hat at a time, and then just everything else will just fall.
What would you say was one major revelation that you had in terms of your healing journey?
I can't be scared of myself.
What do you mean?
So there's parts of my like past and my traumas that I didn't want to go into. And because I was scared what that meant for me and like what it meant for like my future, like mental health and sake of myself. And you can't be scared to go into the hard places and to learn about yourself, because those are the things that make you who you are.
Yeah.
And there's so much that I've picked up in my life that I wasn't even aware that I picked up on patterns and habits, and from familial to everything else, right? Friends and environment, and feeling like, well, I don't want to change who I am, but also I do want to change who I am.
Yeah, how you show up in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most valuable thing about what it means to evolve, and being, change is the constant thing in life. And the more that you resist change, the more it persists. And I think for you, we're in a relationship, and I feel like I'm very much in that pit, that fire. I'm always like doing something, and like you were in your funk. And I feel like you really had to, like, you had me on the side pushing you, and like wanting to evolve. And like I'm over here just like I get a little crazy sometimes. I'm always like hooked on like, what's the next thing? Like, how can I keep going? How can I keep going? And like, first of all, I had to learn that people function differently, and I had to learn your love language. But I think in a way, when you're met with that stuckness, when you're met with that comparisonitis, when you're met with that analysis paralysis, you really have to be willing to say, okay, look at your shit. Look at what is actually being detrimental to your life, your well-being, your wellness, and your evolvement, because we're supposed to change. We're supposed to evolve. We are destined for that. And not everybody will have that privilege or that awareness to do that. But if you're sitting in this analysis paralysis, feeling stuck and feeling miserable, your soul is literally asking you, knocking at the door, can you just look at this part of yourself? Because this is the thing that's holding you back.